Other people are just getting themselves situated. We'll do some little bit of chanting, reminding us about the framework for this class. We'll do a short invocation. You can respond. Om Gang Gurave Namaha. Gang Gang Gurave Namaha. Om Gang Gurave Namaha. Om Gang Gurave Namaha. Gurave Namaha. So chanting brings us into the moment, and you all chanting and helping get the room ready, appreciate it. It means salutation or adoration to the teacher, which is not me, but the long lineage of teachers who've brought this information down. We are practicing nonviolent communication this morning, and it is from the Yoga Sutras found in the description of the 8 layers. We'll chant those together. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. So these are the 8 layers of practice. Yama, you can say it. Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Yama means the controls or checks on behavior toward others and the environment. Niyama are the controls on my own relationship to myself. Asana is what most people do when they come to the studio. Yoga postures. So these are the body temple, cleaning it up. Pranayama are energy explorations. So I'm working in my inner body. Breathing techniques are one of the tools we use. And pratyahara is prati ahara, toward my essence. So this is often called sense withdrawal, but it's more than just your senses, it's also your 5 motor organs. So it's not just your ears for space, your skin for air, your eyes for fire, your tongue for water, and your nose for earth. It's not just your 5 sense organs, it's also your 5 motor organs. Your vocal cords for space, your hands for air, your legs for fire, for walking, your genitalia for water, and your anus rectum for earth. It's withdrawing all that energy in towards your core, or disconnecting from the objects of those. These 5 are the outer 5 layers. So that's the beginning of the yoga process. they're outer. These three are inner. The first one is dharana, which means holding or focusing at a single point inside. Then dhyana means meditation. And the literal definition of meditation is being able to keep the awareness inward while something's moving. You know, you all could come closer. Like, I mean, there's like 15 feet between me and you all. And samadhi. Samadhi is the full and total placement or absorption. So these three, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, are the three inner layers of Ashtanga yoga. And Ashtanga yoga is one of the tool sets that we use. It's one of the tool sets. It's also a popular form of asana practice. Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga is, in my opinion, really the precursor of all the athletic flow yoga practices. So whether it's power flow, vinyasa flow, shakti flow, I don't really care. Jivan mukti, they all can find their roots in Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga. So Ashtanga Yoga is a tool set, and it means the 8 layers or rungs or limbs, which is the way it's usually translated, but I don't usually say 8 limbs because then people draw a picture of a tree. And that's not actually how I think of it. It's 8 concentric layers like the Russian doll. Doesn't mean that you have to do the outer layer first, but it's pretty important that you do. Yesterday I was talking about how essential it is to do the core admonition work, the cleaning up of the dysfunctional programming inside, things like worry, that's what I was working on, or sacrifice myself for others, or do it myself because no one else will do it well enough. Or like on the other side, there can be other things like, you know, just be selfish, do stuff only for me, nobody else matters. There's no God, it doesn't matter what I do. Take everything I can. These are like dysfunctional programs. When a person practices yoga, they start to accumulate some prana, some energy, some power. So it's like the balloon inflates. So it's not like they necessarily worked through that stuff. It just makes that stuff like more obvious to the people around them. So if they don't work on it, it just becomes more obvious. If a person starts doing teacher training, then there's more energy around all this stuff. And there's more interactions around these imperfect parts. The person that becomes a yoga teacher or any kind of healthcare provider, that stuff's just more obvious. The person starts owning yoga studio, creating yoga lineage, creating like a church. It's just even more obvious, their distortion. It's just expanded like a balloon got expanded. The writing on the balloon is just bigger. So it's so important that we do our own work for all of us, but especially if you're going to teach. The best thing I think that can happen is if a person's able to expand and hold a lot of space and teach a lot, and yet they're also willing to keep working on whatever writing is there on the balloon, and it's obvious that that person has done work because it just feels free around the person. There's no stickiness. There's no controlling behavior. So these 8 layers are the background for what we're going to discuss today. because this outer layer around yama, so I always teach my teachers, point yama, niyama, asana, pranayama. Then when I take all of my action organs and sense organs and bring them inward, which you could do like this, pratyahara. So those 5 things, that's a tool set, and that's kind of the outer tool set that we use in yoga schools. That's the outer tool set. And of the yama, which plural becomes yamaha, yamaha, ow, aha. So 1 is 2 is ow, and 3 or more is aha. It's a really unique construct to the Sanskrit language. There's a dual case. What is implied is that if it's just me and Hannah, that's something different than it's me, Hannah, and Kendra, and Linda. And there's something unique about just 2. And so the language not only has a single and a plural, it also has a dual case. We're here to learn about these 5. Yamaha. There are 5. The first one is what? Ahimsa. And this dot just close your teeth when you write it in English. Letter M. But it'll sound more like an N. Ahimsa, which means non-harming or non-violence. The second one is what? Not classically in order, but what? Satya, which means what? Being in truth. I kind of messed up my patterning there, but oh well. This one probably makes more sense. The third one is what? Stay, which means what? Yeah, non-stealing. The fourth one means, what is it? Yeah. We don't usually put an H sound in front of a M sound in English, so it's awkward. And my writing is deteriorating as I go downhill. What does it mean? Yeah, that's what it literally means. Act in line with the Creator. God the Creator, God the Sustainer, God the Dissolver. In Christianity, they're all male. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. In this tradition, they're not. There's God the Father that's masculine, God the Mother, who's the Creator. There's God the Sustainer that's masculine. There's God the Sustainer that's feminine. There's God the Dissolver that's masculine. There's God the Dissolver that's feminine. So all those forces are more in equal balance. Traditionally, this has to do with teaching people how to redirect all of those sense impulses toward a higher center, rather than just going and consuming, being able to use something towards the higher centers. So brahmacharya is a stage of a monastic person's life where they learn how to redirect sex current and use it instead for redistribution of energy through service. Each of us can practice this through not being like a wanton, lustful person, or making sure that, we connect to our partner in other ways for intimacy. This is a very difficult thing to teach adolescent boys, especially. Like they're just, and it's harder in a culture like this where they're just, depending on whether they're heterosexual or homosexual, but whatever, a form is used to sell everything, whether it's a woman's form or a male form. Like there's just image, like sense gratification stuff all around them. But acting in line with creator, I also talked about yesterday, can also mean, whenever it was, it's more than just that. It's also things like reduce, reuse, recycle. It's like line up my home in an energy efficient way. It's be involved with things that support all life forms, God the creator, rather than my own little selfish me. However, it is true that Kant is a part of what is usually talked about. And the sutra says, brahmacharya pratishtayam virya labha. So it doesn't have to talk for a long time about sex energy or any of that kind of stuff. It just says that when you are established in this, you obtain this vital energy. So there's something powerful that can happen when I, rather than just going for immediate gratification, I actually redirect it. It's like storing. It's like I'm investing. So I'd say investing is kind of one way that you could think about it. And the fifth one, which it turns out I didn't plan very well. But the fifth one is what? Pa, rig, raha, aparigraha, which literally means what? It literally means not everywhere grasping or clinging. And so the traditional definition that people use is non-covetousness, like don't get addicted to possessions. However, it's more than that. In Colorado, I always say, think about your rock climbing and you're like, oh crap. And you just cling to the face, like, I won't let go. And that's what we do with our stuff. That's what we do with our job identity. That's what we do with I'm a man and these are the ways that I suffer. Or, I'm in natural health care and this is how disempowered we are in society and blah, 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 blah. I can start to identify with non-permanent identities. I can cling to them, whether it's my stuff, my job role, my family identity, my birth order, or whatever. It's just not to be clinged to. And what the sutra says here is aparigraha. You can say it. Stairye, janma, katanta, sambodha. Who remembers what janma means? This is like the test of how well I teach. Janma means birth. Katanta means the why for. What does bodha mean? It's the same as Buddha. Enlightened. And what does the prefix sam mean? Completely, perfectly, totally. So when I'm established in not clinging to temporary stuff, then the why for of why I was born becomes fully enlightened within me. I actually can wake up to why I was incarnate. So that's why in the monastic tradition, they just like wear a loincloth and all they have is like a begging bowl. There's nothing to deal with except their own head. And like, how do I relate to people? There's nothing, there's no distraction. Now we each have a choice to make in our own lives. It's okay to have stuff and to play roles. You need to play a role in the world. But how attached are you and how identified are you as that? Is that really your permanent identity? Because that's a setup for pain. It's going away, no matter how much you like it or how much you take it in for a tune-up. All right, so this is our background still. This is the beginning of the yoga process in the Yoga Sutra Ashtanga Yoga tool, which is just one tool set. And I like to remind you all of that. This is just one of the tool sets that's offered in sadhana, padaha, the chapter on practices. So Ashtanga Yoga is the second chapter, the chapter on practices. The third chapter is where we start to develop vibhuti, special powers. And one of those special powers is dharana, dhyana, samadhi, the three inner rings. So actually being able to keep my awareness inside and watch a current inside my own brain and spinal cord, and then actually like no longer being a watcher, but just being totally absorbed. That's a power that's developed through the first 5 outer practices after a course of time. So that's not something that just comes to most people. Most people sit and meditate and they're like, I want to eat. What about so and so? You know, the mind's just like spinning on other stuff and stories, and that's okay. But redirect it to something like a breath tool. Bring it back to what your practice was. Here at this school, you all get breathing techniques, and they just go from gross to more subtle. And then the more subtle one leads into a couple minutes of silence. And that's really all I ask of new yoga teachers is just do breathing techniques for 15 to 20 minutes every morning. That's it. Meditation will come or it won't come. The definition of ahimsa is ahimsa pratishtayam tat sannidhau vaira tyagaha. Now, who can remember when established in nonviolence, what does tyagaha mean? It's mainly a test for Jenny and Macy and Subin and Michael. Tyagaha means relinquishing. Relinquishing what? Vaira. Vaira is from Vira, which Vira Bhadrasana. What does Vira mean? It's like hero, courage, ambition, passion. And Vaira means having a lot of that, having a lot of passion. It can even mean hostility. Virabhadra was not some mere warrior. It was something invoked to come and destroy and wipe out an entire group of others. So Virabhadra was a specific kind of warrior brought forth just to like vanquish. Also is cognate to the planet Mars. Ahimsa, this is a side story. Ahimsa means nonviolence, and nonviolence here in the sutra is defined as relinquishing hostility. Tat sannidhau. When in the face of it. So, like, if it's around, someone's all riled up, I myself am not actually going to have to go there. I can just, okay, that person's riled up. Why is it affecting me? This isn't an easy definition to sit with because it's a lot easier for us to think, well, I don't shoot people and I don't hit people, so I'm good. Okay, but actually, most of the time and a lot of the time, each of us is getting bothered by other people. So it's saying, okay, well, for me, there's still a long ways to go. And especially it tends to happen around the people closest to us. Our spouses, our kids, our parents, our roommates, our coworkers, our yoga students sometimes. Okay. So then we have this tool set that we've been practicing all week called nonviolent communication. This is Marshall Rosenberg's work from this last 50, 60 years. The website is the nonviolence. And we need tools to practice this. So Marshall Rosenberg is the author. And there is also a school, which is sort of like 12-step. Like you can find meetings in practice groups, and you can find other people that do it, and you can just practice. And that might be my only relationship with a person. Be a yoga teacher or be her Ayurveda doctor or whatever she might want me to be. Instead of maybe I'm only like her practice person out there in the world. And that way that person has a really neutral perspective on me. cnvc.org, the Center for Nonviolent Communication. And what is the 4-step protocol we've been learning this week? observe, feel, need, request. So observe, an observation is what? Quality does it have? It's neutral. It is not an evaluation. And what is the example that I gave you all? When you came home late last night. So tone of voice is a part of evaluating someone's behavior, and so is word choice. This isn't about semantics. It's about cleaning myself up and making choices around how I'm going to allow my energy to go out in the world. When you came home at 9 o'clock last night, we can both agree it was 9 o'clock. Was it 9? I think so. You know, like that. So my purpose is, if Hannah's my, person in my life, when you came home late last night, or when you came home at 9 o'clock last night, the purpose of me interacting with Hannah is to keep the tube open. Like, if we're connected, that's the purpose. I'm with this person, I got to keep the tube open. If my purpose is I'm angry at this person, I want to be vindictive and give them a laundry list of their shortcomings, what is that? I'm just throwing darts at the person. So the point of this exercise is for me, I get to self-reflect, what am I doing anyway? How am I talking to this person? Feel is something that is a human feeling. It's not something someone did to me. So attacked is not a feeling. And as soon as I say, I feel attacked, and Hannah is like, what do you mean? I'm not doing anything. You follow me? A need is not a desire. Michael had a great example. What if the person's need is for vengeance? Okay. Sounds like a desire. It's not a desire. A need is a basic human need. It's basic to all of us. And there are a list of them in the NVC book that is available to you all. By the way, also there's a free handout on the school website around NVC that you can just look at or download in our online EDU department. So there are a lot of needs. Independence is a need, but so is interdependence. Human beings have a need for interdependence, like being a part of something. Human beings have a need for community, but human beings also have a need for autonomy. And so exploring what are these needs in a group setting can be challenging. There's, of course, the need for things like for shelter and food and water, need for safety. There are also needs for things like expansion, like the need to keep growing. And that's a big one that comes up in relationship settings. Because if I'm with my wife, and here we are, and we're in our home, and we've got this home going and whatever, but I'm starting to get kind of bored or something. Well, I can be like, oh, my wife doesn't like to play golf. She doesn't do anything with me. My wife, I can be bored, right? And I can blame my wife for being a boring person. Or I can examine my whole life and be like, I have a need for expansion, or I have a need for creativity, or I have a need for play. These are all basic human needs. But I can put them on the people around me and be like, oh, this person, blah. I don't feel that good around working. Or I can look at it and be like, I'm going to stay around this person. What is it that I need? And then I can examine my whole life and be like, well, where else am I kind of short on the need for play? And why is it that I'm wanting that my wife to be the only person where this happens? Okay, so those are reasons we're using this. The fourth is a request, and we're not really using that in this protocol right now, but let's say it was, a parenting situation. And the first request might be to ask the child, would you be willing to repeat what I just asked of you, or would you be willing to repeat what I just shared with you? Just to see if that person's along, like, what did I say? It's kind of like, what did I just share with you? Like, what did I just talk about? In a conflict situation, like, let's say that me and Hannah are having some huge conflict, we both work somewhere, and, we've kind of had this like energetic of competing or something the whole time or whatever. And then at a certain point, it's like intolerable. I don't want to see her at work anymore. And so the first thing I recommend that you all do is not go like share from an NVC standpoint with that person and be like, I observed that this and this and this and this and this and this and this, and I felt this and this and this and this. These are my needs. Well, would you be willing to repeat back what you heard me say? Like, don't do that. Instead, just say, I could just say, hey, Hannah, it might just be me, but I've had some trouble coming to work when I knew you were on the schedule. I was wondering if maybe you could, if there's something coming up for you around seeing me, and I'm open to hearing anything. Would you be willing to share? Like, is there anything I've done or what? And so because I'm trained in NVC, I'm actually the one putting on the empathy hat first. And I'm going to this conflict situation and saying, hey, would you be willing to talk about it? But at that point, I need to be prepared for whatever upset that person's experiencing. This is one of the potential ways that you all to go forward with NVC. And we talked about this at a previous class, which is learn this protocol, read about it. The book is worth reading. When you go out in the world to start practicing this, the 3 ways I recommend that you practice this are: 1, just be a listener. Just be a listener. Go out there into your same situation that bothers you, and rather than you having to be the one that talks, just say, tell me more. Listen. If it's your kid, tell me more. And then let them, and then use their words. So, this and this and this. Repeat the words that they said, So you're unhappy. That's a feeling. And these are the events that have happened, right? And this is the thing that you're wanting, And then you can also, after using the words that they say, you can also guess. Like, I'm guessing you have a need for something. Like, if it's a kid that doesn't want to go to bed, they're unhappy, they really want to do something, you can guess. I'm guessing you might want like some more connection time with me. Or I'm guessing that you might want more play. So we can guess until that person's fully heard. Make sense? That's in a parenting situation, but like in a spouse situation or in a coworker situation is equally valid. Anywhere. Angry neighbor. Okay? Super difficult. You've never liked that neighbor. But there they are out in their yard. They say something, and you're like, tell me. What's bothering you? Not something that I'm perfect at, but I do the best I can. I own a house in Indianapolis. I don't live there. I have some tenants there. I have some next door neighbors. It's an older lesbian couple. They're pretty unhappy about the Trump administration. They got banners on their fence about it. They're just pretty unhappy in general, is my experience. But, I do the best I can to stay open to them since I met them. I had one of my students who was getting ready to move out to Southern California. I have tenants, but the tenants were gone. They were up in Michigan for the whole summer. So the house is just sitting empty. Nobody's there. I had tenants. They weren't there. House empty. Yard was getting cared for, all that. One of my students was moving out to Southern California with her fiance. They had an RV. So they went, I said, yeah, sure, you can park the RV on my lot, no problem. Well, one of the ladies came over in the middle of the night and banged on the door until they woke up and said, you can't park here. Ah. It's like, whoa. So my student called me. I live in Washington State. I'm like, what the hell is that? whatever, you know. So I was coming back to Indiana the next week, luckily. So rather than like going over there and like whatever, like how could you possibly do that? I went over, you know, what else has been going on? What else are you upset about? Is there anything else about my property that you're having a challenge with? They weren't home. So instead, I wrote a letter. And then I said, you know, hi, my name's Pierre. I own the house next door. This is the situation that I'm wondering if there are other things that are bothering you about my property. Here's my number. That was it. It might not seem fair. It might not seem like it was equal or just. However, it certainly made it possible that we could coexist next to each other. You follow me? 9 months later, I got a call. Same lady called, angry. Some dog is barking inside the house that I own. You know, that dog should never, blah, blah, blah. These ladies have dogs that run at the fence and bark as loud as they can as soon as I come to my own house. Like, okay, is it fair? Is it whatever? No. But instead, again, you know, I called my tenant. I said, hey, you know, what's going on with this dog? She's like, oh, yeah, that probably was a bother. So I just, you know, texted the lady back. I said, here's the tenant's number. First, I asked my tenant, I said, are you willing to let the neighbor have your number? She's like, sure, of course, you know, like that. It's not fair. It's not equal. It's not just. However, I didn't think for a second afterwards. You see, I had zero residue. I didn't swallow pain like for the next weeks and months, like, oh, that be whatever lady, you know, how dare they, you know, here I am, like conscientious man trying to support, I employ 30 women. Like, I'm not Donald Trump, you know, like, can't we try to get along here? No, I didn't do that. I didn't think for a second. I took a nonviolent approach to it. You know, if either one of them crossed some line that was openly hostile, of course, I would set a boundary. You know, and that situation with the RV is one that would have been, after I listened to her, whatever her situation was, I would have said, if my yoga student had felt comfortable still parking there, I would have said, it is perfectly within my right to have a guest with an RV stay on my own land. You know, I'm willing to hear other complaints you might have about the way that this land may look and how you might be concerned. I can only guess maybe it's like you're concerned about there being like too many people nearby, and or maybe you're concerned about the appearance of the neighborhood and your land value, or I don't know, what is it you're really concerned about? What do you need? What does not matter? What did you need? Or I like shared my story, but at some point I would have set a boundary and said, well, I hear all of that, and at the same time, this is my property, and these are my guests, and so they will be staying here. And if you feel so compelled to call the police, go ahead. I'll call them for you. You know, but that seems really unfortunate that I'm not allowed to have a guest who happens to have an RV. Like that. My yoga student didn't want to stay. She wanted to get the hell out of there, which I understand too. So anyway, this is in action. You won't always use these 4 steps in action. I gave the example of someone driving like way closer to the car in front of them and changing lanes more frequently than you felt safe. Rather than going, I observed that we're 7 feet away from the car in front of us and we have changed lanes 4 times, seconds. Like, that's not going to go anywhere. You can just jump to a feeling. I'm feeling scared. No, that person in that moment has a choice. I could have said, you're driving like an a-hole, right? As soon as I start with you, I start a fight. If I say, I'm feeling scared. They might not even like that, but, you know, at least I'm more likely to have some reconnection. Anyone have any questions about the 4-step? Observe, feel, need, require. The need is where I have to look at lists of things and see, well, what do I need? When I started this, I oftentimes didn't know how I felt. As many I know, I was either good or I was good, I was happy. But I was okay. Okay. But I didn't really know the other flavors of feelings, or I wasn't willing to fess up to being angry or sad or whatever, confused. So I had to like do some research. How am I really feeling? Let alone what I might need. And here's the big thing. And if I don't know how I feel, that's one thing. But if I don't know what I need, how can I expect someone else to guess, especially someone where there's some apparent conflict, if I myself don't know what I need? So this is about adding value and claiming my life. Oftentimes, once I am more accomplished at NBC and I am attempting to work in some sort of remediation setting, the first request will be, would you be willing to repeat back what you heard me say? That way there's a sense that the thing got fully digested. So would you be willing to repeat back what you heard me say? Or just, what did you hear me say? This is useful if you're finding yourself in a repeated argument with a spouse or someone. Just let's like slow it down and make sure that we're actually hearing each other first. And when doing that, as the empathic listener, as I said before, use as many of the words they used as possible. Do not change their words. They don't like it when you change their words. Use the exact words they did. Any questions? Observe, feel, need, request. It's a protocol. It's a tool set. Yes, Sarah?
Is it fair or an okay approach when you are being a 100% empathetic listener and an individual is saying things like, I felt so. An example, this is an example that I experienced was somebody said, I feel like a second class. Not a true feeling. So in that instance, while I'm listening to them and I'm repeating back to them, could I say, I heard you say you feel like a second class citizen. I'm a little confused. Does that mean that you felt sad? And like,
absolutely, that's exactly what to do. You're not negating what they just said. You're saying, this is what I heard you say. Is that correct? And I'm guessing that might feel sad, or it might feel frustrating. How is it that you feel? You're not correcting them like, you're not using correct NVC language, dummy. Let me teach you. Let me teach you with my more sophisticated way of talking. Because as soon as there's any element of that, they're going to feel it, and they're going to be like, what are you?
I guess that's one of my questions. So one of the things you said was to make sure you use the exact words that they use rather than changing them. I think that sometimes, in the times that I've, especially when both sides are in conflict, I've all, in like a different, in a different lineage, been taught to hear something and then digest it and put it in your own words to to express that what you heard was what you actually internalized is what they were actually trying to say, that you understood, and that sometimes repeating the words back can be non-constructive, I think would be the.
Okay. So there are other systems of like communication systems, and one that you studied, there was a way you learned to like have an internal process around what the person shared, and then kind of reflect back to them what you heard, having sort of processed it in your own way, and that and that perhaps even in your experience, if you were to repeat the words the person said, it might be non-constructive. And I'm guessing like it could be used kind of as a baiting technique or something, to mocking, inflaming, condescending, inflaming. So this is certainly useful to bring up, and the energy behind how and why I'm doing something is the most important. That's my experience. I find it actually is really important for people to first learn to do exactly what Sarah said, which is in an open way, use the exact words that that person said. And also, as Andre is sharing, be mindful and watchful that I'm not mocking the person. However, it is also a way of setting a boundary. As an empathic listener is not a doormat. So if a person is using accosting language, or if a person's using language, it's the first step of reflecting it back. Like, all I did was say the words that you just said. So if it doesn't feel good listening to it, imagine, like, I do need to be mindful though, how the tone of the conversation is going. The way that Sarah suggested, I think, was really, my experience is really usually quite successful. If the goal is to actually keep the tube open, the way Sarah shared was quite passionate. I heard you say you felt like a second-class citizen, and I'm a little confused. Did you feel frustrated or did you feel sad? So if Sarah owned up to, like, I'm a little confused, like, I'm not sure exactly how that feels, second-class citizen. So there's just a true attempt to clarify. And as Andre shared, it's important, like tone, energy tone, and what's behind the reason why I'm asking this. The reason that you all have the exercise of using the words that the other person uses make each of you realize how well can you listen, or how well do you hear things other people are saying and then slightly change them. So my own mother does this thing that I don't find particularly useful, and sometimes I correct her and sometimes I don't. We'll be talking about something and she'll say, "So what you're saying is," and sometimes I'll go, "Actually, no, what you're hearing is." Please don't change what I'm saying. Anyway, they're subtle things, but they do matter. In the process of NVC, it's useful in every circumstance. The three things I'm suggesting that you all do from this class forward: 1, be 100% empathic listener. 2, practice processing your life with someone else who is not that person, with preferably one of these people who's also studied a little NVC. Those of you in the teacher training, that's going to be a regular thing that you do once a month. It's just, you'll do your practice yoga class, do feedback, and then you're just going to digest your life with each other using NVC. It'll be a regular thing that you do once a month. So 1, be the 100% listener. 2, process with other people, because we do need empathy. None of us are fully enlightened beings here. Like, we do, like, you get a reservoir of unmet needs, and then someone comes who's up frustrated. It's hard to be that empathic listener in that moment. So we need empathy. My experience is, if I go, is it Linda? Is that right? If I go and, like, something happened, me and my wife, I can go talk to Linda about it, and process it in NVC. And just Linda hearing me when my wife couldn't, and I drop a lot of my own residue. Because just Linda was willing to actually give me empathy. And not that Linda was taking my side. She just said, "Oh, wow, that sounds really frustrating. I heard you say that it was sad, but I'm guessing that was also frustrating." And then I'm like, "You're right, I was also frustrated." And then that residue that didn't clear finally clears. So that's the second thing. Yeah, Jenny.
So when I'm a mixer, so when people are telling me their stuff and I'm listening, I then immediately want to fix.
In the past, Jenny. In the past.
Something I'm aware of and I want to change. So
next time, Jenny, okay, in the past, I have been a fixer. Well, that remains to be seen, but I think in the past I have been a fixer is probably the most accurate way from my experience, and I have a lot of overlap with you there. Codependence, deeply a part of my past and my life. My experience is that it intertwines with my own core admonition around worry. Like, I'm the one that needs to take care of this whole world out here. My experience is that as I have been able to just hear other people's experience, it allows them to digest it, and then they get to go forward in the next thing into their life, having digested it. I'm not going to be there holding their hand through all of life. So unsolicited advice is actually a pretty big no-no in the world of conscious living. So if someone asks you for a suggestion, that's one thing. This is not the tools of NVC. You can guess at things. Like I heard you say that you felt attacked in that situation. I'm guessing that you felt afraid too. Is that true? Did you feel afraid? I'm like, no, actually I was just angry. And I'd say, what do you think you needed? Like, do you have any sense of what you might have needed in that situation when that was happening? So you can guess, and that offers clarifying support for that person. Because, as I mentioned earlier, in each situation, there's a need. I shared the example of me riding motorcycles, right? And me going home and living with my mom in my 40s. And, you know, her just, like, it was super difficult. And so every time she'd be like, take my car, take my car, And so my experience, I would say, Mom, are you afraid? Are you worried? She said, yeah, So I let her feel that. I just acknowledged it. I didn't try to change it. Like, I'm 40 years old. Shut up. I'm going to go drive my motorcycle. What do I look like? I'm 12? No, I didn't. I asked my mom, are you feeling worried? Are you scared? And my experience, this is the central thing that's important, Jenny, is that my experience is that my mom was more worried about me riding a motorcycle when other things in her life were out of control. So she was just afraid in general. And so that moment was just the place where she felt comfortable to express it. So by me acknowledging it, rather than me like saying, no, you're not okay, you can't be worried, I was actually allowing my mom to be afraid or worried. I said, yeah, I get it. I get it. Motorcycles are more dangerous. I get it. Now, am I perfect with this? No, but I'm a lot better when I take care of myself and do my practices and get enough empathy in my own life. So you all have an exercise to do over the course of the next 15 minutes where you're going to take a situation in your life. It can be positive, You don't need to use NVC just for, I shared that example too. Like I can say, oh, Kendra, you're amazing. You're so awesome. Or I can say, Kendra, when I see a woman of your wisdom come to my class at a drop-in level on a Saturday morning, I feel really happy because I have a need for contribution. And it really means a lot to me that someone who, from my vantage point, seems like already really well accomplished in healthcare and in taking care of herself would take the time to come listen to me present something. It really gives, I really feel happy and feel warm inside. So that's a much deeper than say, oh, awesome. Like I've shared for her some of like what's going on in my process. So you're going to write for the next 15 minutes, or let's say the next 10 minutes about a situation. If you have something that's undigested, conflict oriented, then I'd recommend that you write about it because I'm guessing that you might not actually know what you need. Okay? You're going to write about the situation. It can be anything. We don't need a long background story. And remember, when you choose a situation to choose one, choose a long litany of offenses. Okay? Just one particular instance. Just write about it. You probably don't even need 10 minutes. Okay? See if you can come up with a neutral observation rather than an evaluation. See if you can figure out how you felt. And then if you don't know what you needed and you don't know what a need is, do we have any books around, Sarah? Mm-hmm. Can you find the page that's got needs on it listed? And what you're doing right now is processing self-empathy. That is the third I recommend that you do. Your self-empathy by digesting your experience in your own journaling, by fully digesting what was happening for you in that situation, rather than having it loop around in your head. So you're writing about a particular situation, practicing doing self-empathy. If you get lost or confused, I'll be here. You can come ask me a question. But we're going to do question and answers in just a few minutes. Oh, okay. No problem. Yeah, so if you're not sure about a need, you can come ask me, or we'll do group check-in here in about 5 or 6 minutes. Having trouble finding something, it can even be something from the long ago past. You have a situation with the daughter? Particular event you remember? Yeah, use some particular event. There would have been a pattern. She's your daughter, unless she didn't grow up with you or something, but then try to land on a particular instance where you noticed that flavor come out in your life. Yeah, that sounds like a really important one. So the request can be, something that you're doing internally, like once you've identified the need, the request is a self-request, Would I be willing to resolve this with this person, or do I need, would I be willing to get more support around this? The request might be something like, would I be willing to look for other places to get this need met? So there are a lot of requests that might be there that you're making with yourself. It's my brother Andre, and he's writing about something with his kids, and he's like, I don't have the patience to deal with this right now. And he might write something like, next time this happens, would I be willing to close off my ears and exhale 3 times or whatever? You don't know what your request is. You're each making a request of yourself around how you can, do something around this unmet need. Because when we have unmet needs, our feelings are negative. If you're writing about a positive situation, it might be like, how can I get more? How can I repeat this? In the example I just shared around Kendra, I could say, would you be willing to share your email address with me so I can contact you next time I'm going to be in town, or whatever. A lot of self-requests can happen here. You're offering yourself empathy. I think that's probably not likely going to work too well. We're learning here how to videotape classes. I don't think you need to do it, Sarah. I mean, ostensibly, what we're doing with these videotapes is that they're good enough that we can actually put them online and sell them for $1, But this one's quality is already too poor. So we'll just be putting it up online for free, which is also great. It's fine. There's no problem. You keep writing about your situation. Take about 3 more minutes to write about it. If you're having trouble finding the need, or I'll be here. We'll go over it. Okay. So we'll come back together here. Process of self-empathy is there for you to digest an experience that may have been undigested, to identify need in your life. We'll just share needs. Hannah, were you able to identify a need?
I said compassion.
Need for compassion. Sometimes that's also a need for warmth or understanding. Understanding. Are there other places in your life where you may seem deficient in understanding or compassion? Okay. Kendra, were you able to identify a need? Were you willing to share more about the situation? Or would you? Okay.
I'm not sure.
No problem. No problem. If you'd like to explore the situation in class right now, we can. Would you like to do that, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I went on it felt the daughter has very in tune with her needs and what she can do and when she can do them.
Okay.
And I've felt pride for that.
Okay.
Because it's it's volatile time.
Okay.
World, it's volatile time in her age group.
Okay.
So, and I had been worried about that, I guess, about her, that she might not find her way.
Okay.
And I feel that she has. So I don't know if that ties in.
No problem. Yeah, we're just going to work on it. So Kendra is processing something, digesting something around her daughter, whose name is Reese. And so if she were to share with Reese, she would start with saying, Reese, I noticed there might not be one particular example that you could give. Maybe it would be like, one situation involving another person that you could point to. And so you would choose that particular example. And so the feeling would be a feeling of contentment, I think. I feel content, or I feel happy, or I feel relieved. Feel relieved. So we're just guessing for Kendra what's happening. And then so the needs that are there might be a lot of needs in this situation. For one, Kendra might have a need for safety, not for herself per se. But she has a universal need for safety, and it's applying to her daughter in this case. She might also have might also have something to do with a need for Kendra's own sense of her own need for contribution. Like, did I parent you in such a way that you were able to become autonomous? Make sense? So that's the way you would use this exercise, is what were Kendra's needs in this situation. And that's where the relationship becomes less sticky, You can be like, I'm just fessing up to my own needs here, Like I had a need for, and autonomy would be the need, I have a need for autonomy. I have a need for independence, right? A need for her to be strong and independent. I have a need for expansion, for safety, for happiness, for joy, for a lot of things are wrapped up into this. But that's what the exercise is for you to help clarify what are your needs in this situation. So you are doing the exercise. And your request of yourself might be something like, the next time that I observe something that Reese does or something like that, I'm going to choose to find a way to express celebration, So that's what the exercise is for. Sarah, were you able to land on a need?
I was. Yes, I had a need for trust and a need for safety for Eddie's.
Yeah, and say my needs are like universal. So in a situation, I can have that need, and I'm owning up to it. That other person might not have that need, but I'm owning up to what my need is. Do you have other places in your life where safety and trust come up as
As those needs being
Yeah.
fulfilled.
fulfilled or unmet?
Yeah.
It's mostly fulfilled?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're able to be pretty specific. It sounds like it's good to clean up. Macy, you're able to identify a need?
Yeah, I needed gratitude and respect.
Okay. Gratitude. I think that's probably a basic need. Appreciation, maybe? Respect, appreciation. Do you have other places in your life where sometimes you might not be getting your needs for appreciation or respect met, other than the situation? Or how are you doing with appreciation and respect in general?
I feel pretty good about it.
Okay. That's the check-in. Okay. Andre, you're able to identify a need?
Dancing around it a little bit.
What words did you come up with?
I need to have a constructive relationship with the coworker who I have to spend a lot of time with.
Okay. So need is going to land on something, so a need for interdependence, a need for peace, a need for
Maybe a little background will help. This is a long-standing relationship. I'm having a lot of trouble with it. Given the circumstances, I am trying to fix it because that's part of work.
Yeah.
Also, I have a coworker who a good bit older than me, and on a almost daily basis, the stream of negativity flowing towards me, not about me, but just about his job life in general, is very difficult to process, especially because a lot of times I get it at 7:45 in the morning as I'm driving to work, and it makes me feel overwhelmed and anxious about something that I have no control over.
Okay.
And and then it also can make me feel deflated and angry too, depending on kind of where my headspace is.
And those are some key words. So make me feel. Those are real key words to pick up on. So make me feel. I'm just reflecting, because that's the self-empathy process that Andre's going through right now. He can write that out himself. When you, what's this person's name? When you can share blah 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 blah, it makes me feel blah 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 blah. And then at some point, Andre's going to read his own writings and be like, makes me feel, and be like, why is someone else making me feel a way?
Because Ken does need empathy. He needs a place to vent. His life is very difficult right now outside of work, and
Right.
So it's hard because
So the process that you're going through, the exercise for Andre right now, is for Andre to digest this recurring event in his life. As he shared, Ken calls regularly early in the morning, and Andre starting his day. So Andre is using this self-empathy exercise for Andre to digest it, this experience. And that way, as Andre shared, this Ken situation isn't going away, and Andre actually does have compassion for Ken. That's what I'm hearing. Right? Am I with you? So this isn't about problem solving. This isn't about me giving Andre advice like what to do or how to digest the situation. It's just an exercise for Andre to write about. Like, Ken, when you share all of these things, it makes me feel blah, blah, blah. And so Andre's landing on that. And then what is the need that you might have? Joy, peace, serenity. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
And so then you, Andre, get to check in with your own life and see, how am I doing on joy, peace, and serenity like everywhere else in my life? And if I'm running low everywhere else in my life, that might be why I don't have, like, this situation is so intolerable for me.
I mean, so what it feels like I need is I feel, rather than needing something from Ken, I need to be able to detach his energy from mine. But I don't know if that helps.
Well, yeah. So that was part of the original reflection that I had, is that languaging is important. So no one actually can make me feel anyway. That's something that happens internally based on my previous patterning. But for the exercises, Andre is also sharing something that's super important for the rest of us. It's so common for us to use with need. I need or I need you to. Actually, the need is just a universal need. And so the universal need is something like, in this situation, the universal need is, Andre might be like, in this situation, I have a need for more independence, or I have a need for more autonomy, or something around boundaries, so that he actually has the compassion available to listen to what's going on for Ken and be unaffected by it. Am I making sense? So the universal need that Andre is landing on, he's digesting this experience with Ken. Remember, Ken may have done this like 10,000 times, or maybe not 10,000, but like 500 times at this point. But just land on one. You're not going to talk to Ken about it right now. You're just doing self-empathy. And so the self-empathy process is just to write about it. Say, hey, when Ken, 7:45 in the morning, calls, live a long list of things, I feel. Then how do you feel?
Anxious, mostly.
Anxious. And that's the thing to land on. Like, how is it that I mainly feel? I feel anxious. And so you're not going to make it go away until, and it's not like we're trying to make something go away, but the process doesn't get digested until I can actually identify how I truly feel and what my basic need is. Later on, we can look at action steps around where I might actually get my needs met. But for now, it's just a process of digestion. That's it. And the self-empathy process for Andre is, I feel anxious. I have a need for, we're not sure, autonomy, independence, something around him not needing to like fix something. Is that right? I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
Joy.
It's a lot more complicated than that, because a lot of the times the things that are overwhelming him, it's just his job. Like, just do your job. Like, But at the same time, I know that I know so much more of his background, what's going on with his personal life and his difficulties at work, that I understand why he's feeling that way, or I at least have some sense of why he's feeling that way.
Yeah.
So I don't. That's the problem. The loop is like continuous. It's hard for me to figure out how to break free from it.
And the suggestion that I have is to use this exercise just to give yourself some self-empathy and see how that goes. And if by the process of you filling up your own cup, you're then more available to either listen to Ken and not be emotionally entangled, or to just set a boundary with Ken and say, I'm no longer available to talk at 7:45 in the morning or whatever. I mean, obviously work roles, there are some things, but there are times at some point where, in this situation, you might be able to just say, Ken, I actually have a tremendous amount of compassion for what you're going through. And I'm noticing that since we regularly talk about this, I'm starting to feel really anxious. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to consider getting some support or some help somewhere. There are a lot of action steps that might happen later, but for now, the only action step that we're practicing is just the self-empathy process, which is only about Andre. It has nothing to do with Ken. Just focus only on Andre. Ken altogether. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
And the key thing is that there's going to be more Kens. So even if we got Ken's life all nice and neat and tidy, like there's something else is going to come fill that. And so it's more about how does Andre take care of Andre than it is about what's going on in Ken's life. And so the process of self-empathy is for me to identify, okay, I actually feel pretty anxious here. I feel pretty nervous. What do I need? I'm not fully sure. So I'm going to look at the list and kind of feel it out. And it's not a need to have something, it's a need like safety, or a need like peace, or a need like serenity. Those are basic human needs. That's all the exercises. Linda, you were able to find a need?
A need for me. Yes. Releasing the past of sadness or transforming my feelings towards it.
Okay. So it sounds like there are feelings of sadness and grief. And so then the need would be something like growth or expansion or perhaps peace, So we're looking for basic needs. I don't know, Subin, Michael, you internally did or wrote down anything? Yeah, need for understanding. And then the next thing is how is that you doing that in the rest of your life? Really well. Okay. Then that's pretty straightforward. Subin?
I don't have a need to prove that somebody can't harm me.
Okay. As soon as I say need and then to, it's usually not, it's no longer a need. Okay. And that's where we get kind of clumsy with languaging. Okay. So a need is just a basic human need. I have a need for autonomy, I have a need for expansion, I have a need for growth. So in this case, you have a need for safety, it sounds like. Or something like that. What is the feeling? Okay, neither of which are exactly feelings because they imply something that someone else is doing to me. Okay, and so this process has been very useful for Subin because this is how I clean up. And it really is important because it's tying right into what your apparent share is about. As long as Subin goes out there identifying feelings as things like degraded and disrespected, Subin is giving all of her power to someone else around how she feels. As soon as Subin says, I feel angry, well, that's a feeling, okay? You understand? Okay. That's why we do these exercises. It's not about semantics, it's about landing in power. Feelings have power. Feelings have real power. And feelings are vulnerable and messy. Not always messy. But there's real power in them. And then I can identify clear needs. Like, when I heard you say whatever this person said, or when this action happened, I felt terrified. I felt so afraid. That other person, I have no idea. And it's not even about that other person. It's like Subin getting an opportunity to start practicing setting boundaries and saying things out loud. That's how Subin goes forward in Subin's incarnation.
Work for people that want, but like when you're just out and about and strangers like catcalling.
Yeah, so this is why the process of self-empathy is important. The process is why it's why the process of self-empathy is so important. Yeah. You know, it's this is a very real life situation. It's very real, right? And so, you know, landing in the anger and the frustration of it, you know, anger and frustration of it, and the real basic human needs for like dignity and respect and, you know, safety. And there may come a time where, Subin, where there may come a time where it might be that you're just like, I'm going to say something, you know, like you might, you know, you know, do you have any idea how scared I feel right now? Like you might yell that. Like that's not a normal way of that going down, is it? Do you have any idea how terrified I feel right now? Do any of you have mothers or sisters? Or girl children? I feel terrified right now. Like you might. I'm not saying that you have to. I'm just saying that it lands on I feel. And there's actually power there. Yeah. I understand. And there is a time for boundary setting and righteous warriors. There is. Okay. There's time, you know. Set boundaries and people trample over them. There's time. It's just like, you know, the universe is making it really clear what the next action step is. However, before that, I do advocate for, like, you know, rather than getting overwhelmed by the feeling, actually being able to express it, you know. So who did I miss here? April? Jenny? April, you able to land on a need? Yeah, I think that's a basic one. Need for communication. That ties in with the need for interdependence, a lot of times, or need for understanding. How are you doing in the rest of your life with those needs? So that reflects, then that's something to then look on. Am I going to get upset about this one situation or this one person when actually my whole life I'm having some challenges there? Where might you likely be able to get your needs for interdependence or communication met? That's the question. Okay? Get that need filled up somewhere where it seems likely. How? Yeah. So that's the way this works. Like if there's judgment or resistance to something, and I'm always having to like turn inward or whatever, that's probably a part of the old story. The common patterning that I have as an individual. Like I have some judgment on the way life is going, and I should try harder. Am I making sense? Instead, I can just be like, this is how I'm feeling in this relationship. This is the need that seems apparent. I'm also, it seems like there's a lot of that need everywhere. So where can I get that need met? That's just a real simple, basic question. There's not a... So once I actually start to get my needs met, then I can come back to my other relationships, you know. And by the way, there are real, you know, there are things that are important, like genuinely, like there are times for things like sexual expression for a person of hormonal years is a basic human need, more or less. So this is not like, oh, I had sex for sexual expression, you know, husband, so I went off, you know, whatever. No, because that's not a part of it. But things like communication, there can be ways where it's like, hey, I'm recognizing that I have a need for communication or interdependence, and it's not going easily somewhere. So I need to get that need met somewhere else so that I can reapproach my dominant relationships with a bit more, you know, full cup rather than empty cup. What about you, Jenny? You're able to identify a need?
Encouragement.
Encouragement. I think that is a basic human need. I don't know that it's on the list, but it ties in there with support. Okay? How are you doing in the rest of your life around that? Okay, so then there's the question. Okay. How can Jenny get her need for support met? And that's the request that you each might write on this page. If you find a need, okay? That's the exercise. It has nothing to do with the other person. It's you digesting your experience. Yes, Hannah.
So just kind of playing off of people's question or comment about a lot of this feeling dependent on other people, because a little bit of it is, if somebody is angry and in a heated situation, sometimes it doesn't matter how much you have your shit under control and you're practicing this, they might just be, flying off the handle. But do you think, so for myself, if I'm practicing this in these situations and continue to practice it, that kind of could leach out into my relationships around me, that they might learn this by osmosis for a better.
Of course it happens. Of course it happens, and it's just baby steps. Like this is, think of how often you all have practiced yoga postures and how many hours you've put into it, or how many hours you've practiced anything. How many hours have you put into actually practicing conscious communication? Like less than one, maybe? Okay, so the more I practice, and start with easy situations. That's why you all are to start with self-empathy, being 100% listener, and processing with one of these other people. And then being able to practice NVC in real time is much harder. That's much harder. So that's like, I'm not ready to do handstands yet. Let's see if I can actually weight bear on one arm. And at the same time, with every layer, it is developing within me. And there are beings that are so established in nonviolence that the other person's yelling off the handle or whatever, and the other person's just looking at them like, there's a lot of drool coming out of your mouth or something. They're not even, whatever. They're just like, wow, you sound really angry.
So do you think the person that has drool coming out of their mouth, that by the other person remaining calm and maybe continuing this, every time the situation arises, that the person who doesn't practice nonviolent communication would eventually just learn it?
Absolutely. It happens. Absolutely. That's just some child that didn't get whatever needs met, and now they're a grown version of that same kid. Okay, that's all it is. I gave you the example of my neighbors. I might be the first man that's actually been able to listen to them being angry and not take it personally. And then suddenly all men aren't going to rot in hell forever, do you follow me? Absolutely. It changes all the time. This is actually what teachers are doing all the time. That's what parents are doing all the time. And that's why you're just digesting, I'm not taking things personally. I'm not taking things personally, and because I am so content and I have worked enough on myself, I don't need people to be different. I can go be around people and they can be how they are. I can go be around people and they can be how they are. And I'm not saying that the world is fair. I'm telling you, don't expect the world to be different. The world is always going to have men that are catcalling women. It's going to, until we reach a more enlightened age. It's just going to, see the world for what it is, but digest your own feelings around it, digest your own feelings around it and stand up for how you feel and what your needs are. That's what we can do. And yes, absolutely. As soon as I practice my skill set authentically, it absolutely changes the dynamic. All that's happening out there for each of you and for me is I'm going out there as some shape, some imperfect shape with all kinds of karmic residue. All kinds of karmic residue. I'm going out there and the world is going to help me get rid of it. The more I consciously work on it, the less the world is going to beat me up. But the less I consciously work on it, the more the world is just this haphazard, chaotic thing of chaos and people doing stuff to me. You follow me? The more I work on myself, the more I see the world exactly the way it is and don't need it to be any different than it is. And when I go out there like that beings are going, and they encounter someone, because this is you, from a really simplistic model, this is you in all other situations, okay? It fits perfectly, okay? So Hannah's question, leading on April's goes, is as soon as I stop making this, and instead I make that, you know, and I guess it's not a good model, but I don't know. I make that, they're like, it no longer fits together, okay? But I like the idea of making a whole, okay? If I make myself whole, then I'm not going out in the world incomplete, like the things don't match anymore. And so then that person's like, hey, I tried to do that same shape or whatever, and that person just like listened. Or the person just expressed really like, I feel afraid or whatever, but didn't start fighting or blaming or whatever. So yeah, it does matter. And that's why each of us, my experience is, at least I don't love particularly one age group. I don't love one, you know, sexual orientation. I don't love one gender. I don't love one race. I really love being around people who have made peace with themselves. That's who I love being around. I just love being around someone who's made peace with themselves. It's very free to be around them. Delightful is my experience, you know? So we went way over. I don't know what to do about lunch, but it was an important class, so I guess we'll just start a half hour late for the next class. All right. Hannah made kitchery, so enjoy some food. Thanks for coming. We'll start the next class 30 minutes late, and I'll just need to be here in case someone else shows up from the world.